because otherwise I'll forget, which is what happens often. I stop the recording for the schmoozing and then I forget to turn it back on.
We don't want that.
Well, so we'll just have some schmoozing online. So we'll wait just a couple more minutes. It's just 7 now. And I'm
Your
ready.
hair is so long. Oh my God.
I know, amazing, right? I can't remember the last time it was this long.
Yeah.
I kind of
It's
like
good.
it.
Yeah, it's good. All right, I'm gonna make some tea. I'm gonna sign off my photo.
See,
but-
if you notice, wait. I have both kinds. I have my wine and my tea. You never know what the moment will need.
Exactly. It's true, only too true.
I just finished several bowls of 16 bean soup. That was
Oh,
amazing.
boy.
It was good.
Well, both Bob and Kay are here. Now I'm really honored.
Hi.
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 Oh, whole bunch of people signing up.
Okay. We're close. We're close. We'll give it another minute or two and then I'll start so I don't get nervous.
Yep.
Basically, if I get paid for all the ums I use, I'll be a rich woman.
Judy.
You're among friends, my dear.
I
You're among
know, I
friends.
know. Oh, good. John Mucciola's coming. Ocean even said he was going to come tonight,
Oh, nice. Nice.
but we'll see. I don't know if he had to go into the city today.
Looks like.
How are the roads out there? Does anyone know?
They're
It's
okay.
bad this afternoon, really bad.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty okay.
They cleared my road this afternoon.
Yeah, we didn't leave the house today.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the Prius, I mean, the big 2-footer was
Larry there too?
bad. This one, I think, was maybe, and I think maybe 2 inches at the most, I think we got. But it was the fluff,
Mm-hmm.
easier to shovel.
I've always been ice phobic, and when we were moving into this house, I walked my dog before we headed up, just to check on some things about a week or two before we moved, and I fell and fractured my foot.
Ooh.
So I'm even more ice phobic than I used to be.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, you have to be really careful because, you know, when you like going out to my car the other day and it's on, you know, where I did shovel off and stuff, but it was still on like that icy, you know, and I just went out with my sneakers to get something and I'm sliding all over. I had to hold on to the knobs.
There's John. Hey, John.
19.
Hi.
But the parks are nice to go to in the snow. So like Quanstock has great cross-country skiing, if anybody goes. And even if you walk along the road, it's really nice to see the beautiful snow.
I'm just going to give it another minute because it's going to be hard for me to admit people as I'm doing the presentation of it. But I'll manage. Who are we missing? Hey, Leslie. Leslie, you should be in front of my. Hi, you should be
Leslie.
positioned in front of my piece that you got. You too, John. All right, I think we're at a good round number at 7:04. Why don't we go ahead and start? Wait, Ilse, did you go out?
No, I'm in, but I'm trying to go in on another computer, but this is fine.
Okay, I just
I'm-
admitted you again, so let's see if that works
I'm
better.
sorry, I'm on 2, please. I close this out now. I
Okay,
go in the bigger computer. It's
I think
better.
that's Linda Winters, is it? I know Barbara Hertzfeld was coming, but okay.
Hi.
Well, people will join
Yeah.
as they join. Okay, So I'm going to go ahead and start as long as I'm recording already. And if I have to stop to admit people, you'll bear with me. So for those who don't know me, I think everybody does. Some may just know the name, not the face. I'm Robin Kline. And welcome to my studio and my work. I have to really confess that I've been hesitant to do this because my work is really different than most of yours. But when I didn't have anyone lined up for February, I took a deep breath and volunteered. So here we go. Come on, there we go. All right, so sometimes I have company in my studio. This is Emmy when she was a baby. And you can see working in clay is not for the faint of heart. It is messy and labor intensive. And this is also a couple of years old because she is about 3 times that size now. This is now, I have to make sure, for some reason, this video I did of my studio, the sound doesn't come across. So I am going to narrate it in real time. Okay, this is my studio. We're very fortunate to find this townhouse that had everything we wanted. And I now have my own studio in my home, which was a long-term dream. This is work waiting to be bisque fired. It has to dry. The work you saw on the table had been thrown the day before, needs to be trimmed. This is where I recycle clay. This is my sink. There are buckets for recycling clay all over. I use a lot of different clay bodies. It's my wedging table and bags of clay and a grinding wheel and there is my wheel, the place where all the fun happens. And lucky for me, I may be in a basement, but that's the view outside my window. And this is just a small percentage of the ridiculous amount of inventory I have in my house. Luckily for us, the house has shelves everywhere, so they're all full. And let me just go here. So this is how most of you, the kind of work most of you are probably used to seeing of mine. This is me at the Harvest Festival a couple of years ago. It's an Ocean Morissette photograph, which is why I look good in it. I only look good in his photographs. And the truth is that I really love throwing. It's probably my favorite part of the process. So I make a lot of things. And to do crafts fairs like this, you know, you have to show the kinds of things that people are going to buy. But the positive part of that is I really do love making things that people use in their daily life. They think of me when they're having their morning coffee or cereal. And that's kind of fun. And I also think that eating from beautiful handmade work elevates how we care for ourselves. That it's not just grabbing a meal, that it reinforces the kind of ritual aspect of meals. And some of the jars I've made actually serve as urns for loved ones' ashes. And for me, that allows my work to serve a truly sacred function. Here's an example of mugs. The speckles you see are from the clay body. I like the way this shaped mug fits in my hand. You can't really see the ridges very well, but you know, there are a lot of things to think about as you're making even just functional work. You know, how's the lip gonna feel in someone's mouth? How is the mug gonna feel in their hand? How much is it gonna hold? These are bowls. I happen to love color. And so this is a glaze that I found that I think is really fun. And then sometimes you just have to play. And I started making these series of animal pots. And for me, they're just fun. They just are a way to make myself laugh while I'm in my studio. It started with cat bowls and then dog bowls and then jars. I even did a cat mobile for my niece's new baby, although I'm afraid it probably functions more like wind chimes. you know, the truth is that there is a lot more that goes into working with clay, which I just wanted to talk about a little bit. Clay has taught me a lot of life lessons that I try to share with my students. You know, you can lose things at any stage of the process. It can fall apart when it's wet. It's very fragile and breakable when it's about to go into the bisque kiln. Glazes cannot work out. So clay teaches the potter to accept loss and to be humble in the process. And at each step, every step, even with each piece, there are decisions that have to be made. What clay body am I going to use? What kind of kiln is this going into? Exactly how do I want to articulate this form? And what do I think about what makes a bowl or a bud vase beautiful, and how do I achieve that? And the truth is that my focus tends to be more on the process than on the product. And I don't think all pottery is the same. I think beautiful forms are very different from clunky cylinders, even though the average customer only cares about whether it's blue. And there's always a question to me about whether what you see is craft or art. And I think about that a lot. But in that context, I wanted to share images work by two of my favorite ceramic artists whose work I really see as art. This is a piece by Hideaki Miyamura, who is an extremely talented Japanese artist who lives in New Hampshire. I mean, his graduate training was here in the States, but his work is really breathtaking when you see it in person. The forms are simple, and he's done a lot of work on developing glazes that achieve this iridescence that he loves. In fact, the book that his gallery wrote about him is Risk and Discovery. So he takes a lot of risks, which I also relate to. And this piece is about 22 inches tall, and it's not really meant to be used as a bud vase. This piece is by Brother Thomas Bezenson, who was a Benedictine monk who ultimately left the Brotherhood because it was taking too much time away from his work as a potter. And an order of Benedictine sisters gave him, a place to live in a studio as artist in residence. And this is also a large piece. It's about 19 inches tall. And his work was very spiritual. He thought a lot about creation out of clay and what he really wanted to transmit. And this piece is part of a series he called his Millennial Eggs. So loving his work as I did a series of my sort of interpretation of the Millennial Egg. And this is my favorite of that series. Let me just see, okay. This is a very simple, just round vase form. I love roundness, I love creating it, I love looking at it. I like the way it feels, and I like using very simple glazes on this kind of form. I think I don't want to detract from the form. But yeah, let me just go back for a second before we talk about that piece. So as I was learning to throw, once I sort of, and I won't use the word master because I don't know if you ever completely master it. I realized that just being able to throw a nice form wasn't enough, that I needed to find a way to say things through it, other things. And there were things I wanted to express, like patterns in nature, and also the fact that, you know, clay is very, very malleable. It's very plastic. It's very organic while it's wet. And then you see finished objects and they're hard and they're stiff and they're permanent looking. And I wanted to find a way to somehow reconcile that dichotomy and show something of the process in my finished work. And one of the patterns that I've always loved is the pattern of the sand at low tide. So this is from many years ago. And I just kind of altered the piece to try to express what low tide looks like to me. This has probably got to be at least 10 years old, but it was early in my taking the risk of altering things and looking at things. This is a much fuller piece that I altered, and I just responded to the roundness of the form and tried to make it move more. And interestingly enough, subsequent versions of this were not as successful. I think sometimes the first time you do something, it comes together, it works, and then it doesn't work as well subsequently. This is a carved piece, and again, to me, that's somewhat reminiscent of tree bark. When I carve, a lot of people are very graphic in their approach to the surface. They'll measure and draw and really work out the details. Not for me. It's a very instinctive process to me. I respond to the form and the moment, and I kind of refer to it as an improvisation. So no two pieces are carved the same. And again, this is a large altered piece. And I kind of really loved being able to impress that waist even more. And it kind of laid the groundwork for some subsequent work I did. Now, part of the beauty of pottery is there's just unbelievable range of forms you can make, and each of them has different appeal. And people always ask me what my favorite form to make is. And I can't really say, because it depends. But I do love bowls. There's something about them that's almost like an embrace. There's an internal space that invites you in. And for whatever reason, I tend to use a lot of color in my bowls. But you know, as I'm making a bowl, I'm worried about exactly what this curve is doing and how it relates to the base and what the rim is doing, and you know, things that you wouldn't think about looking at it. But this was fired in a salt kiln. I'm lucky to have a good friend who has a salt reduction and wood kiln at her studio and opens them up to other potters. So it's a really wonderful community experience. This is a series of, I do a lot of these painted bowls where I use low fire glazes, which have a wonderful palette, but they melt at cone 6, which is what this was fired at. And you can't completely control the results. But then again, that's part of pottery. You can never completely control the results. The fire, the kiln, the firing, where it is in the kiln, influence that more than you can in some ways. Jars are another form so this isn't that dissimilar a form from that vase. On the other hand, it's got a whole different feeling with a lid. This was fired in a reduction kiln. The black is wood ash. But you know, when you put a lid on a jar, it just completely transforms the personality. It becomes something different. This is another carved piece. Again, very different kind of lid, very different feeling. And the carving I think, follows the movement of the form in a different way. And beyond jars, we start doing teapots, which really come to life when you assemble them. You know, you need to make sure that your lid and your spout and your handle all work together. And they're really fun and they're challenging. So bud vases are this form that I probably make a lot of, because I'm always enchanted by exactly how that neck relates to that curve and the size of it. And in this vase, the speckles are actually the clay, not the glaze, not the clay. Here's another bud vase. And are you seeing my toolbar, or can you see this properly?
Fine.
It looks it looks great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's another carved piece, and you can see that the carving is completely different than the other pieces. This is also fired in a reduction kiln. That's a blue celadon. And I love this piece. You know, the carving is just sort of gently follows the curve. But as I made all of a while ago, I early on saw that bud vases, there was something very anthropomorphic to me about them. And if you remember that tall blue vase, that also had sort of a feeling of personhood about it. And I started playing and making what I called people bottles. Just kind of pinching the bottoms together. This was only about 6 inches tall. And I made a bunch of them, but I couldn't find photographs of the old ones. This is recent, but this is small, but it's, you know, it's got a little bit of personality there. And then I knew I wanted them to be larger. So these are maybe 8 to 10 inches. They started transforming a little bit. I was putting more curves in them, not just the line. Here's another one. And then I really wanted to go large. And I did. And I think, John, these are the ones that live with you. Is that right? I don't know if he's on mute. So John Mucciola has 2 of these guys. I don't know if it's these 2 or one of them, or in any event, the scale started to really work for me in a different way than the small ones did. And I also like doing them all in this Chino glaze with wood ash, because it felt like skin to me.
The nomination is on the floor. Would someone like to make a motion, Connie?
Motion to pass one unanimous vote for Rob Scott.
This is a family that I did this grouping for
I
Black
second
History Month a couple of years ago.
All those in favor?
Wait,
Aye.
hold
Are
on,
there any
Robin.
opposed?
Yeah, John,
Yeah,
Linda's call, is that the Democratic Committee that I'm hearing?
Okay.
yeah, I'm splitting myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but
Can you hear me, Robin?
You need
Yes?
to mute them for us.
Okay, well, I just wanted to add one comment about the pieces that you showed,
Yes.
that the gestures are so wonderful, and that's what attracted me to them.
Thank you.
You're
Come
welcome.
back, go do your Democratic thing and come back. So what I didn't say about those 2 is, as I started, and even the smaller ones, but really with the large ones, I was really envisioning them as groupings, and hoped, and still do, although I haven't done a lot about it recently, to have a show with a lot of them, because they're all different. Each is a one of a kind, but they all have different attitudes, but they relate to each other. And there's something I love about seeing them together. So this was a family. As I said, I made it for Black History Month. This is a couple that I made that I called Proud Man and Woman. And sadly, only the woman sold in the gallery show it was in. So he's a lonesome guy now.
Oh,
And this one, I really love her attitude on this one. There's just something about her that she's just like, oh, make me, or something like that, you know?
Robin, what size is the larger pieces?
They're all somewhere around 22 inches tall, 19 to 23. And this is a more recent one. It's a little bit smaller than the others. This was fired in the inaugural firing of my friend Lynn's wood kiln, and has no glaze on it. Everything you see about that surface is atmospheric firing from the wood ash. And I have a few more pieces. I had things going into her next wood firing. So there's a small section of my gestural bottles on my mantle under an Ocean Morissette photograph that I came by through a barter. He has a gestural bottle also. So there's that. And then, you know, I love this sort of altering and creating this hint at gesture and at personality, and I applied it to other forms. So this is a jar that I did, and in fact, a friend's stepdaughter commissioned one of these as an urn for her late father, because she felt it represented his personality. He was a guy with attitude. And this is a teapot that's also got that sort of altered, the lid has that gesture to it, and it looks to me like it should come out of, it should be in Beauty and the Beast. So I'm gonna just turn now to another direction that work has gone. And, you know, I knew about kintsugi. A friend shared this particular paragraph, which I think is quite lovely. When the Japanese men broken objects, they aggrandized the damage by filling the cracks with gold. They believe that when something suffered damage and has history, it becomes more beautiful. And the technique is called kintsugi. And my response to this was, of course, I must be gorgeous by now. So, but I did, many of those tall gestural bottles have not survived firings. I don't know whether it's because there's such a small opening, or they're very tall and there's a heat gradient, but we've had some tragedies. And one of those, of a pair that I really liked, someone said to me, "Why don't you try kintsugi?" And so I did. And it turned out I loved these pieces even more when they had that history and that vulnerability, but that strength to go on. And it really kind of sparked this whole feeling for me about using kintsugi in my work. So these are probably, I probably did these in 2018. And about a year later, probably, for the last year and a half, let's just make it very fast, there have been a number of personal incidents that have been challenging. And so I used pottery as a way to try to process the experience. And I incorporated what I call intentional kintsugi, so that I cut the clay when it's wet. This is one of the two pieces I did after my treatment for breast cancer. Ooh. And if you can, it doesn't show as well in this color. There's the kintsugi in the breast. This piece also was fired in a salt kiln. There's no glaze on it. It just is this beautiful surface that is the result of the salt. And there's another piece where you can see the kintsugi more clearly. And, you know, it's just, it's a way to incorporate the two, both, you know, processing personal experiences and also using this technique that I admire. This is a piece that reflected, it was in the pandemic show that we did. It reflects another personal loss and is called My Broken Heart. And I cut it so deeply because the pain was so deep that I couldn't really quite fill it with kintsugi, which is pretty much accurate for the experience. And this piece, the two I'm going to show you that I'm working on now are not doing a whole sad saga here. I had, most of you know, I had a bad accident last summer. I had I had a very bad fall. I had a dozen stitches in my face and major tears to my rotator cuff. And so I have these two pieces in progress called After the Fall. And my plan is that they're cut in the face and the shoulder. I couldn't figure out how to do the broken nose, so I didn't bother. And the cuts, I always work in series. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. I'll be doing more when my shoulder, when my arm feels better. These will go into a wood kiln, probably with no glaze, or at least one of them will have no glaze, and we'll see how that goes. And then I will be using the mock kintsugi on the cuts. So that's all I have. Except for, let's hear what you have to say.
Robin, so there's no gold. So what are you using in the negative spaces to heal the pieces? What is that yellow color?
Oh, what I've been using is a gold mica powder mixed in with epoxy. Yeah, I don't actually buy gold. The actual kintsugi sets you can get from Japan are a little, you know, beyond my means at the moment.
Gotcha.
I think the pieces are extraordinary. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was trying to send you a chat in between, but then I lost video and decided that I would just say it in person. Your work is just breathtaking.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Robin, I feel like it's really come leaps. Like it's just, it's like leaps to me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's just, it's creatively and deep, powerful work.
Thank you.
Really nice pieces, and I like the way you put yourself into the art. expressive coming from your experiences, which really makes the piece, the artwork, special.
I had my role model of Ocean Morissette for that.
So
Robin,
Yes,
Robin,
yes.
I'm looking forward to when we can touch your work again.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny, at our last meeting, Hillary said something about, because she's doing our studio visit in May, and she said, but I have like 2 lines of work. Well, the truth is, I have more than 2 lines of work. My daughter was sitting in the living room one day, and all the Gestural bottles are in there. But on top of my kitchen walls don't go to the ceiling. And on the top ledge, there are all these pitchers and animal jars. And then on the window ledge, there are vases. And she said, no one's going to believe the same person made all of this. It's like you have multiple personalities. But, that's okay. Sometimes you play, sometimes you're just making, and sometimes you're doing something else. But I think that's part of the question, right? And that's okay. And is any of it, and what makes one thing art versus something else?
Well, Robin, as you know, I bought one of your beautiful.
I know.
Figurative.
I was so honored to see it in your living room.
And I think the way you're describing it is that that they have attitude. They have they're about personality. They're not about a figure or getting the body right. Although your body is so beautiful, they're so just sensual. And I think that if I had to choose like between craft and art, like you've definitely gone into the art realm with those.
Thank you. Yeah.
And including bringing them into your crafts of your teapots and stuff. Like that's where, when you started to combine the two, you could see, that's where I felt, those were the rich things that went from craft to, an art form.
Yeah, and it's funny, what I didn't say is, because when you did your studio visit, Leslie, I felt a real kinship, because the truth is that I don't approach any of it in a cerebral, conscious way. It's very instinctive, and it's very intuitive for me.
Yeah, I could. That's what I could totally relate to that.
But
Yeah.
Rob, but you're making choices by what glaze and what kind of kiln. You're making creative choices for a reason.
Well, first of all, you don't get the same kind of depth and richness when you use an electric kiln, which is what I had access to for the most part. Lucky for me, I know a couple of people who have reduction kilns that I'm able to use.
Do you know Tony Moore in Cold Spring?
What?
You know Tony
I
Moore?
know of Tony. Are you one of the patients of his wife? I know millions of people who go to her.
Cynthia's for 25
No,
years.
I actually haven't gone to Tony's wood kiln. I've gone to Roger Bauman's, and my friend Lynn, who actually met in a gallery show in Cold Spring, is the one. She's got these 3 kilns up in Pine Bush, so I can go up there with a box of work, and I don't even have to decide which kiln or which glaze I'm using till I get there. And in fact, last time we were doing this, she was down here in the area. She brought like 4 boxes of my work up there and bisque fired it for me. So yeah, you can't get better than that.
Yeah, from what I understand at Tony's, you can actually you stay there for several days.
Well, yeah, you have to. People sign up for shifts, which I have not been able to do, because Lynn's firings have all been since my accident, and I couldn't do stoking. And I still don't know if I can do the next, if I can help. So what we've done is Rick does the barbecuing for everybody who's working, because I can't work otherwise. That's our contribution. It's a community. It's really a community.
Robin, I know, like, you're fortunate that you have a kiln at your house, and I guess you
I
have to have
don't have a
separate-
kiln in my house.
Oh,
I have
but
a
you
wheel
did.
in my house.
Oh, you have, because I guess you would have to have a separate electric line, whatever it is. But can you explain the
A different
differences on
husband
the
also
kiln?
maybe, but that's a whole other story.
But can you explain a bit different, like the different kilns? Because you were talking about wood firing and then reduction and electric.
They're all different. So electric kilns typically use a process that uses oxidation. If I can't describe, I'm not going to go through the chemistry for you of the difference between oxidation and reduction, because I took chemistry my junior year of high school, which is longer ago than I care to think. But it's a lower temperature, and the whole atmosphere is different. Okay, so that's the kind of kiln I used at the hat factory. That's the kind of kiln I used when I worked at the Putnam Arts Council. That's the kind of kiln most people have studios in their houses use. You know, there aren't that many areas you can have a gas kiln because you need a propane tank, right? You have to get approval to do that. So a gas kiln uses reduction. Well, it's not just gas. A reduction kiln is a reducing atmosphere. So electric kilns go to, I typically would fire to what's called cone 6. They use cones instead to mark different temperature gradients. It's about 22, 38 degrees, I think. Most reduction kilns go up to cone 10. So it's a few hundred degrees hotter, and it's a different atmosphere. And there are colors you cannot get in an electric kiln that you get in reduction. You can't do reds. If you fire something with copper in an oxidation atmosphere, it's green. If you fire it in a reduction atmosphere, it's red. Okay. The salt kiln, you actually add salt to it. And that gets, you know, creates all this surface, these surface effects. A wood kiln gets fired over a few days. It's a Japanese, you know, it's based in this, that's what was used in Japan. And there are different kinds of wood kilns. And someone has to constantly stoke it, right? You have shifts of people working around the clock
What you doing?
to keep adding wood and
Trying to
keep the
grab a
temperature at
picture
a
of
certain
it from the
level.
internet.
So, and you,
How
and
did,
I
how did
can't, if I
TJ
used
finally
to,
resolve that question of hers?
But someone's talking and I
Don's
over.
still at the
First she
meeting.
clarified what she wanted, which was that.
No,
You
I
can't
know
use-
all that part, 'cause I did hear a lot of it.
who's talking?
John Michiola.
You can't use a cone 6 clay in a cone in a higher temperature kiln because it'll either melt or when you try to put a hot liquid in it, it'll crack. Okay. And I also make decisions about whether I'm using a white clay or a brown clay. You know, some of what you saw in how different pots look, the pieces that I said John had, those were a white clay body. The piece that the guy, just the woman was bought, those were brown clay body. And I think you can remember how different they looked with the same glaze.
Robin, I just want to comment that, you know, you were talking about how the quality, that the clay is, you know, wet and moldable when you start out. And then at the, you know, when it's completed, it's hard. But I think you've come to an in-between there in the way that you're working, because there's gesture very prominently in your finished pieces.
Thank
Which
you.
I
Yeah,
think,
well, that's
yeah.
been the goal. That's been the goal. For me, I mean, I love beautifully made forms, but I want to be able to express in my finished work part of the magic that happens while I'm making things, right? There's this movement, there's this vitality, there's this organic quality, and I don't want it lost in the finished piece.
Yeah, it's not lost. It's really
Thank you.
beautiful.
Robin, the figurative pieces, the openings at the top, the openings at the top of the piece, where they are angled, just that angle of that opening conveys so much emotion. It takes the place of a whole human face.
Thank
It's
you.
like the tilt of a head when somebody's listening, truly listening. That blew me away.
Thank you.
But on the technical side, could you, I thought I knew what petite was, but could you just define it real quick? Petite
What?
firing? Petite firing?
Oh, bisque firing?
I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
so when, you need to do 2 firings. One you do, it's called a bisque firing, and you do that before you do a glaze firing. So that you're doing it somewhere around 1800 degrees. And anything you're gonna, regardless of the kiln you're putting it in, afterwards, you need to bisque it. And then you make a choice, depending on what clay it is, you make a choice how you want to glaze it and which kiln it's going into for the glaze firing.
Is
So
that a
I
matter?
actually have, she's not on, she's surprisingly not on the call. I just fired a bisque load at Joanne Brody's yesterday. So
Is there a process where you cover and what isn't covered is a different color than what is covered?
yeah, what happens is, so you do this bisque firing, and you do that when the pots are dried enough so that there's no moisture in them. Otherwise, they kind of blow up in the kiln. And you do the bisque firing, and then you can apply glaze. And glazes are basically, you use recipes the same way you would for food, right? Or you buy commercial glazes. I've always dipped my pots in buckets of glaze, and then that has to dry. I often layer glazes, so you have to let the first layer dry and do the second, and then they go in for the next firing. It's part of why the turnaround when potters do work is so much longer than, like, I couldn't create something new for this virtual show we're doing because I have to have a kiln load of work. I
So
don't fire a piece.
So the glazes now that are put on, they don't have like the lead or the contaminants, they're all
No lead.
non-toxic.
No,
So
no
that,
toxins.
you could always eat out of the bowls and drink out of the mugs, and it could last forever.
No. I mean, we only eat on dishes that I've made. So,
Hey, Robin,
yeah,
I wanted to say a couple of things about this. First, I love this whole presentation, and I love that you are kind of taking us through this arc of, from in one sense from craft to art, but really it's all of it, because everything that you are is in what you do, so everything that you bring to your gestural work is also can be in a mug, though not as obviously, but still, I love hearing you talk about this, because clearly you've been thinking, feeling, and doing this for a long time, and it's there's a lot to say, and there's a lot of depth, and I just it's great to hear you like be in your element in this way.
Thank
I just
you.
love it. And I love all the work, I love your functional stuff, and the point that you made about how that's, when you have beautiful functional, everyday wear, it heightens your awareness,
Absolutely.
I love that.
Well, I feel that, eating is ceremonial, right? In some ways. And I happen to love to cook, and cooking for my family, friends, loved ones is a way of expressing how I feel about them, and presenting that on handmade dishes makes it even more special.
Right.
So it's part of a real, ritual to me. It's not just, pick up some plates at the dollar store.
Exactly.
IKEA.
Yeah.
And I love, I know Linda Winters has bowls of mine.
So do I.
Historic before the fire had a lot of my stuff.
I still do.
Okay.
I have a mug of yours and I love it. Almost every morning I drink coffee out of it.
Good.
I have a mug of yours too. I want, Robin.
I know which mug you have, Sewn. You have a pink mug. Yeah. I actually often remember which mugs or bowls people bought.
Robin, I agree with everything everyone has said, and I think your work is incredible, and I think your presentation was beautiful.
Thank you.
I plan to watch it again and again. I have a couple of questions to ask you.
Okay.
First of all, your figures, your inspired figure pieces, they are so powerful. And I've done a little bit of work with ceramics, so I know, so when you make that form that you have to first make, your line, when you put that dent in it, is so strong and so confident. It just is, I just keep looking at that in the, it's just really very, very powerful. I was wondering, when you do those figure drawings, do you do drawings or sketches beforehand?
No, not really. I mean, the sculptures I did, right? Those, the breast cancer sculptures I did, just tried to get a feeling for what I was gonna do. But even then, for me, again, this is, I don't know if it's like the old hippie in me or what, but there is a dialogue between me and the clay. And the clay has properties that I want to respond to, not necessarily control.
Do you find it hard to put that dent in it? To put the, is it?
It's just, as I said, here's another thing you say to students, it's only clay.
It's only clay, yeah.
Doesn't work out, you recycle it, you make another one.
Yeah. It's just, your work is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I love the turquoise pieces, and I have a mug too. And it's what helps me wake up in the morning.
Oh, good. Well,
my only problem with handcrafted pieces, ceramic, is that I don't want to put them in the dishwasher. I have to hand wash them. No, because I want to hand wash them because I want to touch. I want to touch what the other artist has created for me.
Well, so here's the funny thing. We use a lot of my old work, right? I mean, like most of the mugs we use here are kind of like not second stuff I wouldn't sell. But even that notwithstanding, my husband will go to set the table or give me a mug and I go, oh, not that one. I don't like that one. So I won't use certain pieces. But I won't throw it out either because he'll use it. He doesn't care.
Robin,
see, I knew which one. You bought two.
Yeah, there's a cup, a mug, just the most beautiful colors and surface, and yeah, it's a delight to own. Yeah.
Rob, my iPad's about to die, so I may go off, but I just wanted to ask you, we have from Alex's past probably 50 or 100.
You showed it to me once, but without knowing what it is, I wouldn't be able to know.
You wouldn't want it?
He doesn't know.
We just need to.
Does he know what clay it is, who the manufacturer is, what number it is?
No, I don't, that he does not know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
ask Tony.
That. Okay, I just wondered if you could use it.
Okay. Go plug your iPad in. Ocean had something.
Robin,
it's plugged in while I'm charging.
What?
Sorry.
Robin, thank you so much for this great presentation. As you know, I love all your work, and having taken your class, I have a deep appreciation and respect for the craft. But I wonder, I'm curious to know if you would touch upon a little more about the therapeutic aspects of, when you were you and I had a conversation around when you were going through a lot of stuff. And if you would talk a little bit about the therapeutic aspects or the healing aspects of creating the work and what benefits you got from it. And if you would consider art therapy as part of your repertoire.
Right. I mean, I think, and I don't know if this applies to other people who use other media. For me, I mean, first of all, learning to I saw someone throw a pot when I was like 17, okay? It wasn't a class, it was somehow someone was doing it and I went, oh my God, that's magic. And I didn't get to do it for years. And then when I was learning, I spent all of my free time trying to learn, right? And I remember those lessons very well. Now, since I've become more proficient, right? Or over the years that I've been more proficient, when it is really the one thing that I do that I am totally focused in the moment in what I'm doing, right? I'm so often worrying about what time do I need to put up dinner, or there's laundry in the dryer, or I have to feed the cat, or whatever it is, right? But when I am working, particularly when I'm throwing, I am totally in that pot, right? And so, and I love it. And I'm still astounded that I'm able to do what I can do, right? It's like, oh my God, it's growing out of my hands. Isn't that amazing? How did that happen?
Cool, Robin.
And I still, and every person I know, it's very funny. A few years ago, I stopped by to see a former teacher and there was a class, it was an advanced class. Well, she was throwing and you could have heard a pin drop. Because no matter how like skilled you get, it is still magic to watch someone do it. It's just amazing.
But what's
To
amazing
me.
is that Robin, you as a potter, you could reform. I mean, it's such a cool material. Like you said, it's soft and moist until it gets firm after you fire it first. Like
Right.
that's incredible material.
Yeah, it really, and see, and all the, I mean, everything, all the sculptures, all of the gestural bottles are all, assembled from thrown pieces, right? So it's not like I'm sculpting anything.
Like carving, you're doing things. You're interacting with it.
I absolutely interact with it, but I was interacting with pots when all I was doing was some slight surface altering, right? And that's part of it, taking risks, So if you look at my website, and it's been there a long time. So I was with the same teacher and a friend of hers had been at a workshop and said she came back from the workshop where they told them they had to describe their work. And this is probably an important exercise for any art, right? They had to describe their work in 5 adjectives. And I literally spent a weekend with a dictionary and a thesaurus in front of me. I mean, my husband and I went out to dinner after this was posed to me and we sat going, well, what would you say? And my 5, now here's what I don't remember, I'm gonna have to look at my website, were functional, instinctive, organic, audacious, and God, what was the 5th? Damn. Let's see if I can find it. Hey, Rick, are you still on the call? Do you remember?
Perspicacious? I don't remember.
Of course not. See how much attention you pay to me?
Well, I don't need to remember. Why do I have to remember the adjectives?
That's true. You have the reference material right here.
Are you
Here
looking
we
it
go.
up?
So function, first and for function, instinctive, organic, exuberant was the 5th one. Exuberant, because of the joy I feel while I'm making them, right? There's just, and there's this energy and this exuberance that I think at least it characterizes the process for me. But I think it's an interesting exercise to think about how you would describe your work, because it also helps you define what it is you want to achieve with it, right? So what is it that's important to me? How do I want it seen? How do I approach it? How do I really feel about it? It was an interesting exercise. And I don't think much has changed for me since I came up with those. I think I'm still who I am.
I think you also trust yourself. It's about trusting it's
Yeah,
about,
well, that's the audacity. That's the audaciousness, the risk taking.
yeah, that when you're
Right?
confident about what you're doing, and like I think I said when I did my presentations, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a mistake when you're making art, like you just said.
Right. But it's the process that's important, right? If it doesn't come out the way I wanted, I'll learn something to incorporate into the next piece.
Right, or like when I'm painting, it's part of what might be construed as a mistake leads me to the next line, that it makes it better than the mistake. Without the mistake, I wouldn't have gotten to the next place.
Right, but the other thing is, if every piece I made, if I sat down and I made the most perfect piece I've ever made and it did everything I ever wanted to do, what would be next?
But also, Rob, if your hand slipped and suddenly you were, if Robin, it's so immediate, the process.
Robin.
Well, the final product isn't though.
It's all gone.
Robin, wonderful presentation, beautiful work.
Thank
Keep it
you.
up. And thank you for presenting. I have to head out.
Okay.
Everybody be well, stay
Thank you.
safe.
It was
And
awesome.
until next time. Bye.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much as well.
Thanks. So before anyone else goes, I just want to make sure everyone knows that through Larry D'Amico's clever liaison work, we at the PAA will be hosting a presentation and discussion with Wesley Wolford, who is the sculptor who did the Harriet Tubman Journey to Freedom sculpture. The webinar is this Sunday night at 7 p.m. There will be a panel including Fern Joseph, Carla Ray Johnson will be moderating, Wilfredo Morel, Joanne Brody, and Carol Bash will be on the panel. So we've got people from both the film world that he's been in and the sculpture world. And you just need to register. The link to register is both on our Facebook event page and on our the homepage of our website. And I sent out an e-blast. So it should be fabulous.
What date?
This Sunday. We knew we wanted to do it, and he was supposed to have spent this week in Texas, and we all know what's going on in Texas this week. So his whole schedule got thrown up in the air, and he was available this Sunday night. So we booked him, and that's what we're doing.
Well, Robin, just remind everyone about submitting to the show.
That's the other thing. This coming Tuesday, we're doing another virtual show opening March 10th. And the deadline for submission is this Tuesday, February 23rd. Please get your application to us.
And it's called Looking Forward, right? Looking Forward.
Ocean, did I answer your question? Oh, you're muted.
Sort of, but it's okay. It's yeah, you did.
Did you mean more the pieces that responded to the particular? Yeah, I mean those were therapeutic in the sense that, the last last year and a half has really been a hellhole, right? Aside from COVID, I mean, thankfully, no one in my family has been touched by it. But the other thing, there just have been, these other things in my life that have been a little hard to take. And being able to work in clay and have, something that I look at that goes, that's how I felt about it. Okay, the feelings are there, I can move forward, right?
I
documented it in a way that allowed me to share it and move beyond it.
So I guess my question was about transference of the emotion and the pain or whatever that you transferred and turned into healing through your art. But
Yeah.
I guess that's what you're saying happened.
That's what I'm saying in different
And
words,
then
right? I mean,
so those pieces are sort of documentary in a
they're
sense.
documentary, and also, I mean, there's a little bit, as you know, when you go through these major life experiences, there's a little bit of PTSD, right? There's a surreal quality. What did I just go through? What happened? And it doesn't show to the outside world, right? But you need to somehow memorialize it for yourself.
Yes.
I mean, I also have a breast cancer journal, right? That's not for anyone else, but it's got all sorts of photographs and things in it and writing. Yeah, it happened. This is something I want to share. You know, I've shared it with women I refer to as my titsters, who are women who've been through a similar experience, who were friends.
It's amazing. I guess I bring this up because it's amazing to me, like particularly those pieces of that you created when you experienced your breast cancer. I'm wondering, and I asked you a question about if you would consider art therapy or teaching, art therapy to others who are facing health challenges or just meeting any adversity in life in order to heal. Because I've recently, within this last year, I mean, I know a lot of artists, but for whatever reason, and you and I have had conversations about this in the past, but for whatever reason, at least these particular artists that I know, have been reluctant to turn to their art, to art making to heal. And I get that, we're feeling a certain type of way, we're not well, we may not have the energy or whatever, but I think it's just kind of sad that we are given this gift and this talent that we have to use. In my mind, we have it to use for the time that we really need to create art and to lift ourselves up and out of a situation that these artists have not done anything.
But everyone
about that.
experiences illness and challenges differently. And some people are very private about it and don't want it to become part of their art because they don't want it public. And you need to respect that.
Making art is not about making it public. Art is a very personal
It's for themselves,
thing. But I'm just, it is what it is. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I did, actually, when I was at the Putnam Arts Council, I talked about connecting with one of these cancer care organizations about doing a clay program for people going through cancer. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, show how you feel about your illness through working with clay. It's more that working with clay it's just, well, you got to do it. There's something it's so organic. It's so tactile that
physical.
It was also meditative, I found.
Yes, it's very meditative.
Yeah, but maybe through the PAA, we can offer something like that because I'm very interested in having experienced
when we can interact with people again.
I want to share something with you guys since you're talking about it. I had and I don't mind telling this because
I know about this.
1% left, even though I'm charging. I had a brain tumor 15 years ago, and I did self-portraits while, like, the day after I was in the the day after the surgery, and it was I call it brain renovations, and they are kind of documenting my healing process, and it's really quite incredible to use your artwork to heal and to me, art is a diary. Like, it's my diary. That's what I'm presenting. But the brain, if I had time, I would show them to you, but I think the 1% left is, but yeah. Incredible to use your art to help you learn about your process of healing.
Absolutely.
I think clay, one of the things that Ocean is talking about, the medium is the earth. it's the earth. The medium is earth, and you're connecting with nature as soon as you touch the clay. So it becomes a very therapeutic medium to work with. And the very fact, as other people said, how you can manipulate it and work with it and transform it into things, you know, it's a medium for very therapeutic medium.
Yeah, but I wanna,
You can pound it and just get that frustration out and then create this absolutely gorgeous piece. You know, there's so much that you could do with clay that, you know, it has a very therapeutic, it's a very therapeutic medium.
Inez was gonna say something, and my guess is that Inez has used her art to deal with some of her personal tragedy.
Yes, and I have to say this whole Corona thing and everything has actually brought up, you know, I've done with students, I have done therapeutic work, you know, trying to get them to work with their pain or whatever. But there's a difference between, I think, expressing your pain, which is therapeutic, but another thing is to find the elements in the arts materials or the process that brings you joy. And that's a way out of the pain, which I finally discovered like 6 months ago. And just like, I wake up in the morning now just joyful about what kind of colors I'm going to come up with and what shapes, you know, and that's a great way to deal with some of the horrors of life, but life is still so beautiful, you know?
Well, it's both. I mean, that's part, as you get, I mean, you know, none of us are kids anymore, I think. You get to a certain age and, you know, that's why I say pottery taught me life lessons. Life has loss in it, right? There's always going to be pain. There's always going to be loss. That's just an integral part of it. And it doesn't change it. It doesn't mean it's any less beautiful and you know, full of wonderful things. It's just another aspect of it. It's just like when, you know, if you love someone, you realize they have flaws, right? That's it. That's reality. You know, no one is multidimensional. I mean, unidimensional, sorry. Have another glass of wine.
Well, I think, you know, having background in special ed and art therapy, what it relates to for me is the idea as an artist being so integrated with your process that through the process you're externalizing the problem in a way, and it gives you something concrete to work with and to manipulate to help manage and transform through that or resolve.
Right. It sort of moves it outside of yourself, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you're angry at someone and you write it down.
Yeah.
Somehow you're not angry anymore, right?
Thank you so much. This was wonderful, Robin. I really appreciate it. I love your work.
Thank you.
Beautiful. This is good.
I'm grateful to be able to do it again, I'll tell you. I had 6 months off and I didn't know what to do with myself. So luckily the PAA.
I know, I'm trying to get back in my studio.
What?
What's that?
You said you're trying to.
I know, I'm trying to get back in my studio. It's okay.
Okay. Nice to see everyone.
Bye.
Be safe, stay dry.
Thank you, Robin. This was fabulous. Thank you.
I hope I'll
That was
see
great.
all of you Sunday night. Well, we won't see each other Sunday night. It's a webinar. Here's Mr. Stark.
Oh,
You
hi,
have the
Paul.
camera and look how skinny you are.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you very
So
much.
good. Oh, great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Robin. Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Good night.
Night.
There we go.